I remember when I was young, my dad had such a bad temper. It's almost like if he had a bad day at work, he would yell when he got home. Or if things weren't going right with my mom, he would yell at me. Now, I loved my dad so much back then, and I still do, but I do remember telling myself, when I get older, I never want to do that. Until one day I was arguing with my girlfriend, and I was yelling. I was yelling so much to the point where I stopped. I took a step back and was like, wow, I sound just like my father. Have you ever surprised yourself by suddenly sounding like your mother or father when discussing touchy issues, or when you're in a heated argument? Reacting like your parents is not uncommon. It happens to everyone, and it stems from the arguments that you used to have with your parents. Looking at our inner parent or child squarely in the face can be uncomfortable. But according to Thomas A. Harris, it is something that we can't avoid. We all have these two different forces within ourselves. But luckily, by analyzing our behavior, we can eventually recognize and control these patterns, and even replace them with healthier ones. These are my top takeaways from I'm Okay, You're Okay by Thomas A. Harris. I'm okay, you're okay key idea number 1. To fully understand our emotions, we need to analyze our memories. Have you ever witnessed a loved one being affected by sleep talking? You may think that the things that people mumble in their sleep are a bunch of nonsense. However, these mysterious nocturnal mutterings are the direct result of people's memories. This idea was discovered in the 1950s by Wilder Penfield, a Montreal brain surgeon, who used an electrode to stimulate certain regions of the patient's brain. They were awake and could describe what they were feeling when the doctor stimulated the different parts of their brain. That is how Wilder Penfield discovered a region of the brain known as the temporal cortex, and found it's responsible for our emotions, memories, and language. When he stimulated certain points of the person's brain, the person would immediately make a statement that would seem random, such as describing a TV commercial or reenacting a previous conversation. What was particularly interesting was that when stimulated, people would not only relive the memory, but they would also feel the emotions that they felt when they experienced it for the first time. In other words, when the doctor stimulated certain parts of the brain, the patients relived an experience and not just recalled it. This memory process can also happen unconsciously. In general, we remember certain things when we are triggered by certain stimuli, such as smell or sounds. Once the memory was triggered, we can relive different experiences, be them pleasant or traumatizing. Now, this process is more likely to happen unconsciously, but we can sometimes make an effort and dig up certain memories, especially if we are looking to analyze them. For instance, imagine that there is a certain song that makes you feel sad each time you hear it. The weird thing is it might be a happy song. You might not be able to explain this reaction, but if you were to discuss this with a therapist, they might be able to help you figure out what previous emotion and memories are linked to that song. It's kind of like when I'll hear an old song from when I was young. Most cases I can't even explain why it makes me feel something, but I remember hearing it at some point. Other times I'll hear a song and I'll just dig deep on why I can feel it. I'll just remember every feeling I had when I used to hear the song. I'll remember how young I was, who my friends were. I'll even remember my ex-girlfriend and us listening to it on a CD player. Does anyone remember CD players anymore? Anyways, key idea number 2. There are 3 major personality components. Whenever you hear the phrase multiple personalities, you immediately think of a person who's suffering from a psychological disorder. However, people deal with multiple personalities more often than you think. Eric Berne began to identify these distinctive personalities in the 1950s, when he started to notice similar patterns in his patients. One of his patients, despite having a successful career as a lawyer, acted like a spoiled child during therapy sessions. Instead of behaving like an adult, he would whine and have impulsive reactions. We all have the capacity to change our behavior drastically, just like children who are happy and calm, and as soon as something disrupts them, they break into tears. Adults can also be peaceful and suddenly become angry or anxious. The 3 different components of the human personality is the child, the parent, and the adult. The child. So let's talk about the child. The child is a direct result of our collected experience and memories from our early years, as innocent and helpless children. Since the child has no words in his early years, most of our recollections are feelings. The child, dependent on the mother, is always looking for signs of approval or disapproval. Now let's talk about the parent. The parent component is a result of our memories associated with our parents' belief system and general behavior. And finally, the adult. The adult is our rational side, the one that makes us capable of controlling the first 2 components, and that enables us to behave rationally and to find good solutions. As you can probably imagine, recognizing these three different personality components when they surface is not very hard. For instance, the author once had a patient who struggled with insomnia. She told him that she was sometimes stressed out because she felt that her nervous behavior was having a negative effect on her children. Clearly, she was now talking from the adult perspective, but despite being aware of some of her issues, she would also burst into tears and admit that she felt helpless. Whenever she did this, the doctor could notice that her voice would change and she would sound like her inner child. But whenever she talked about her children and how she disciplined them, her voice would change again. This would sound combating and authoritative, and the doctor knew that this attitude came from her inner parent. Key idea number 3. Our feelings of insecurity can stem from our early childhood memories. When you try to remember things from your childhood, how far back can you go? Most people are unable to recall their first 2 years of life. However, that doesn't mean that those years didn't have an impact on us. It's important to understand that there's a distinction between unconsciously reliving an experience and consciously recalling it. These experiences that come from when we were feeling like helpless children can make us feel not okay throughout our adult lives. There is not much we can do about feeling helpless. When we are born, we are forced to leave the womb, a place where we feel safe and comfortable. We are thrown out into the world and separated from our secure source of nourishment. This experience is then followed by a lot of childhood events that make us feel insecure and helpless, while others are not. Because being born is a traumatizing experience and leaves us feeling unprotected, our parents compensate by comforting and coddling us. As a result, throughout our childhood, we believe that adults are self-sufficient, strong, and can protect us from anything. Thankfully, there are things that we can do to break free from this pattern. Key idea number 4. People are inclined to repeat old patterns and behaviors, but they can learn how to break free. We've all sworn at a certain point in our life to never act like our parents. But somehow, we still catch ourselves doing that, especially when we are angry or upset. And this is perfectly normal, because all humans are programmed to repeat their behavior patterns that are connected to our child and parent personality sides. As mentioned before, the parent side of our personality is governed by the values and the rigid rules that we learned from our parents, and the things that they deemed as acceptable behavior. So whatever we learn from our parents, we've taken it as true. And as a result, the child side is usually governed by our fear of consequences and of punishment. The adult is there to question our instinctual reactions and to encourage us to seek more information. The adult side might lead us to analyze the situation and to make a more informed decision. So as you might have guessed, the adult part of us is what enables us to progress as individuals and to change for the better. But in order to be able to do that, we first need to learn how to control our child and parent sides. Key idea number 5. We can learn to identify the moments when we act from the child, parent, or adult perspective. The great way to do this is by understanding the different physical signs that indicate each one. For instance, when someone uses their parent voice to speak, they probably have pursed lips, their brow will be furrowed, and they might be pointing at someone or something. The parent will often do a series of gestures, such as crossing their arms or sighing, clicking their tongue, or using expressions of outrage and disappointment. People who act from their parent perspective can often be condescending and act superior. They might pat someone on the head or enjoy being in a situation of control. As for the child side of our personality, we need to search for clues such as eye rolling, temper tantrums, whining, and pouting lips. The child will also enjoy teasing other people, will have explosive reactions that might involve crying or laughing, will get overexcited, and will oftentimes be restless. If the parent and the child are relatively easy to identify, the adult might be a bit trickier. The easiest way to identify it is by noticing an absence of behaviors associated with the parent and the child. But that doesn't mean that the adult side is a boring neutral one, as people who act from this perspective can also be animated and fun, but without being manic and without overreacting. Key idea number 6. The child, the parent, and the adult are all susceptible to suppression and contamination. As the popular saying goes, 2 is company and 3 is a crowd. These 3 sides don't always play nice with each other. The most common problem that a lot of people deal with is having their child and parent side prevent the adult side from functioning correctly. This phenomenon is defined as contamination. And as we mentioned before, the adult side is contaminated by old values and ideas of the parent. The results can be preconception and prejudice. Say your parents raised you to believe that people who are poor were also lazy. If they told you this repeatedly, your thinking might be contaminated by it. Perhaps as a child, you even tried to question it, but you were told off, not taken seriously, or not given a proper answer. Children will often assimilate their parents' prejudice. Even if someone explains to them rationally and offers proof that these ideas are not correct, and that certain people are simply disadvantaged by society, it won't matter. The only way to decontaminate your ideas by what your parents had you believe is by having your adult understand that questioning and disagreeing the opinions of a parent is completely safe. We all have that one friend who is a workaholic and who can't find the time to do fun things. This behavior can be the result of a very strict family who demanded obedience constantly, and that the playful and joyful aspects in life are completely ignored. Key idea number 7. Our child side enjoys playing games, being the center of attention, and feeling superior. Children enjoy playing all kinds of games, whether it's hide and seek or Monopoly. But sometimes, inner child can enjoy playing more dangerous games, such as asserting superiority, playing the victim, and other psychological games. This tendency can be observed in young children, who cry only to get their parents' attention. What our inner child is trying to do is claim superiority in order to gain some self-confidence that is otherwise lacking. Getting attention can make children feel confident, but it is a temporary effect. This explains why groups who are dealing with a severe problem need to find a scapegoat. Our inner child also loves to play the victim in order to receive as much attention and sympathy as possible. Think of the following common scenario. A person who's going through a very difficult situation and is asking for your help. However, they're rejecting every possible solution. For example, let's say your friend is unsatisfied with his job. You might suggest that he talks with his supervisor, but his inner child will say, "What's the point? He'll just ignore me." Or if you tell him to find a new job that he actually likes, he might say that he tried, but couldn't because the market is too difficult at the moment. Your friend won't accept any solution, so the goal here should be helping him realize that they are speaking from a place of fear, and there's no reason to feel insecure. This way, because he is talking from his child perspective, he will be helped by the care and support that you are offering, and achieving the "I'm okay, you're okay" state of mind. Key idea number 8. If we want to achieve the "I'm okay" as a goal, we must identify our emotional patterns and break free from them. We all feel overwhelmed at one point or another, and we think that things will never get easier. But if we just take a step back and look at things from a different perspective, we understand that this is an unhealthy and unrealistic outlook. In order to identify our emotional patterns and to feel that we are okay, we need to go through a similar process of introspection. Imagine that you are having difficulties choosing a career path and you don't understand why. If you analyze the parent side, you might learn that you're oppressed into becoming a lawyer or doctor because those were the professions that your parents considered respectable. Being forced into a career that you didn't choose can lead to a life of dissatisfaction, as your inner child will live in fear of disappointing the parent. Once you understand these patterns, your adult side will finally be able to evolve. Once freed from the trap of the parent and the child perspectives, the adult can now explore the available options to choose something that you really enjoy. But first, you must learn how to stop listening to authority figures blindly, and you must stop fearing them and seeking their approval. If you do this, your inner child won't be afraid anymore, and the adult will be in charge of making the decisions. When this happens, you'll notice that you're much better at making informed decisions and assessing situations because you're acting from the adult perspective. What you dream of having in life, you can have a life that reflects your own values and ideas. However, this can only happen if we learn how to analyze our behavior and how to identify the different components of our personality. Once we achieve this, we can finally be in control. Getting stuck at thinking, "I'm not okay," is the easiest thing to do. But once you're able to control your inner child and parent, you will understand that you are a strong, independent individual, free to live life on your own terms. So to sum this all up, the real-life applications of "I'm okay, you're okay" learn to see the child in you. Are you still dependent to your mother, maybe seeking her approval? Or are you dependent on someone else, seeking their approval? Is someone getting under your skin, and are you reacting too aggressively? Those are all signs you are engaging from a child position. Learn to see people taking a parent role against you. In life, you might cross your path with people who are trying to take a parent role over you, to make you feel guilty, or make you act or wish as they please. Learn to see the signs of a judgmental parent. Are you still listening to old parent data like values and beliefs? Your parents might have taught you values that are not good for you to obey. Examine them and drop them. Learn to see the child in others. As you learn to approach life with your adult first, learn to see the child in others. Are they dependent on you? That gives you lots of powers and leverage over them. But if you want a more equal relationship, you might not want to engage people as children, but help them develop their adult and have an adult-adult relationship. If you got value from this video, like it. If you have any interesting comments, comment it down below. And if you want more videos like this, subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you did feel like supporting this channel in a huge way, there is a link down below to buy me a coffee, which I would love because that's the fuel that I use for these late nights till 4 AM working on content for you. And that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Let's continue to move in silence.